Thank you. My name's Ciaran Talbot, and this is Munro. I'm from the University of Manchester Library. This is not the library, this is the building I can see from the library. It looks a lot nicer than the library. If you're not from the UK, this is the weather in Manchester all of the time. Just to talk about the university, we've got about 40,000 students, 10,000 staff, and the library has got 11 sites.
This is the University of Glasgow Library, but it's a very old picture, so I'm getting it Ciaran because he put this in last night. The building's all been beautifully clad and it all looks terribly modern now, so it doesn't look like this anymore. University of Glasgow Library is one of the oldest English-speaking libraries in Europe. We have a little bit less students and staff than Manchester, but we're also a Russell Group university, so we've been working together collaboratively on this project.
Okay, so I'm going to, between us we'll talk about what Librarygame is, why we're interested in it, our journey so far, and the plans that we've got next.
Okay, Librarygame is a piece of software that's been developed by a Huddersfield-based software company called Running in the Halls. It's a PHP MySQL application that runs on a standard server. As you can see here, we have taken the software and we have made bespoke versions in both institutions, and we've given it slightly different names, as you can see. And as the talk proceeds, we'll tell you a little more about that. Basically, what the software does is add a gaming and social discovery layer to interactions that our users have with the library. So the whole idea is to engage our students in a more fun and engaging way than just our library service LMS.
So as Kay says, it's a joint project between the University of Manchester, University of Glasgow and the software developers Running in the Halls. And they're creating this bespoke version. The underlying technology is the same, but we're getting our own versions, library tree and booked in. We've got project teams at each university made up of library staff, academic staff, but most importantly, because I think that's going to make or break the project, is students. So we've got student representation on the project board, and we've been consulting with them all the way through. And we've also got a joint project board, so we've met each other, as we have today, to ensure that we sort of collectively get behind the direction that we want this to take.
The Librarygame project, as I said earlier, aims to provide a user interface that's more attractive, more sociable, more engaging. Users will get points and badges and awards for their interactions with the library service. So coming into the building, accessing a book, an e-resource, taking a book out, bringing a book back in time, all of the kind of standard things that people do in a library, we are trying to add some social interaction and some of the ideas from gamification into that system to make it more attractive.
So as Kay says, it's about adding elements of gaming to non-gaming activities and situations. So you get points and badges, and there are these visual representations. So you grow your tree as you build up points and badges. In the case of Glasgow, it's the library tree. And the idea is it's making these activities more fun and sociable, and you can share all of this information with your friends and classmates and colleagues. Okay.
Okay, well, why gamification? The academic research, which has been quite extensive in the academic sector for some considerable time now, about the influence of games or gamification in teaching and learning. And there's a lot that we can learn from that. But Scott Nicholson, who you saw in the previous presentation, has been doing a lot of work on libraries specifically and putting in games and aspects of gamification into a library setting. And his research appears to show that a positive and meaningful game-based experience in a library can actually lead to much better and more active engagement by students. So this is the kind of thing that we're hoping that this project will enable us to discover if it actually works in the setting in the United Kingdom. why were we interested? Well, data from the just funded Library Impact Data project at the University of Huddersfield appears to be beginning to show a correlation between library use and academic achievement. And the reason that we're interested in that is that, probably like a lot of libraries in the country, the data that we're capturing from our LMS is showing a small but significant number of students who now no longer use the library at all, or use the library only very infrequently. And this number is increasing, and we're really worried about it. We don't want the library to be a place that's bypassed. So the whole idea is to use Librarygame as a tool. It's only one of a number of tools that we have in terms of engagement. But what we're going to do is try and engage predominantly our first year students, so the new students coming in who are used to this kind of environment, who we want to become active users of the library, not just in their first year but right throughout their university career. And we're hoping that Librarygame as a tool will help us to achieve that. So the other thing that we want to investigate a little bit, though, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, is the potential to re-engage some students who've already bypassed us. And we've got a little bit of evidence from other bits of research being done that this is a possibility. So this is something that we're kind of keeping on the back burner, although the main emphasis will definitely be with our new first-year students.
So some of the reasons that we've been interested from the Manchester perspective. For the past 2 years, we've ran the Eureka Student Innovation Challenge. So this allows students to pitch ideas to the library, to a panel in a sort of Dragon's Den format, around ideas that can improve the library service. So for the past 2 years, if it was up to the students, there would be lots of robots running around fetching their books, which is a great idea, but there has also been a common theme in that they've always been asking for the ability to peer review and to rate and to share their usage. So we feel there's a demand from the student there, and I'll just read out one of the runners-up suggestions. There should be something like points for students who regularly visit the library, issue and return books on time. We should have a huge loyalty board in all of our libraries and put their photos and names on them to make them feel proud. So there's something there which I thought we could tap into. The second point, there's some, again, another JISC-related research by David Wyatt of the University of Oxford. Does some really interesting research into the way students or learners interact with the digital services and platforms that universities provide. And it seems to suggest that we put out there Blackboard, email, and various other bits and bobs, but the students, if they don't find that it suits their need, which it doesn't often always seem to, they'll go elsewhere. They'll make groups on Facebook, and they'll share stuff that way, and they'll get collaborative in areas that we don't provide, which is fine. It's good that they're learning, but what I was thinking is, can we tap into that? Will this give us an entrance in to that sharing that's going on? And then the last point on, that's word again, serendipitous resource discovery. So if I can see what my friends and colleagues are borrowing and using, am I going to discover things and use things that I wouldn't ordinarily have found? Will it increase my breadth of reading? Or will it just mean that all the students will copy the clever one and just take out the same books as them? I don't know, but be really interested to find out.
The project aims for both institutions. One of the great things about working together, not only are we're bringing sort of slightly similar but different situations, but we're bringing together staff and the kind of knocking around of great ideas from two universities has been wonderful, and we've been able to come up with a set of common aims and goals for the project. And of course the main aim for the project is to manage in this particular phase anyway, is to manage the implementation of the Librarygame software in both institutions as a full service. At the moment it's running as a desktop service, fully responsive, which is great, but we also want to have a mobile service, and that's going to come on stream later this summer. So the whole plan is that both institutions will be running this as a full service from September 2014. And then we can really get into the second point, which I think will be the most interesting, which is to evaluate the effectiveness of Librarygame as a tool to encourage students to become more active and engaged students of the university. And this next bit is going to be the hardest bit, I think, how we manage that process. And our critical success factors, again, the same. The effective engagement with stakeholders. One of the really exciting things for me about being involved in this project is, although in both institutions it's a library-led project, probably for the first time we've been working on a project that goes right across the whole university sector. We've been working very closely with our colleagues in IT services. We've been working with academics who are looking at using gamification much more effectively and more widely within the teaching and learning aspects. And this is the first big project that Glasgow's done. But also the students working with the SRC at the University of Glasgow and similarly at Manchester. It's been a really rewarding experience, and their input to this project has been invaluable. So it's not just about the library's outcomes for us, it's about all of our stakeholders. And as I said, the two key success factors will be the full implementation, and I'm pretty confident that we're going to get there for September, and then next year to evaluate the effectiveness. And we're working together. This will be a project that will run for the next year together with a set of common aims and goals for the project. So how did we get here? I've called this from wireframes to product. We've been working on this project now since last summer, in fact a little bit before that. And in sort of June and July of last year, Running in the Halls created a whole series of wireframes that allowed us to imagine what the project would be like. We had a lot of feedback and engagement with students at that point in both institutions. We fed that back to Running in the Halls. And in October of last year, they gave us a series of PowerPoint slides and actually a system that was almost in real time about what it would look like, so that we could actually go out and engage our students to see if the concept would work. Did they like the idea? Did they like the look and the feel of it? One thing that was absolutely vital was the terminology being used. Was it the terminology that students actually understood and ultimately, I guess, would they use the product? At Glasgow we ran 3 focus groups. Our main aim, of course, is to engage our level 1 students. At that point they'd only been in the university for 3 weeks, so we thought we would get a good idea and insight into new students. But we also wanted to see what our continuing students thought, and we had two additional focus groups, one with level 3-4 students who used the library very regularly, and another of people who didn't use the library very often, to gauge their opinion too. And here was our initial feedback. The freshers absolutely loved it. They loved the concept, they loved the terminology, they loved everything about it. They thought, we're going to use it, when can we get our hands on it? Fantastic. Level 3 and 4 students, they weren't so sure. They really were, the whole gamification, but the whole getting badges and stuff was like, not interested in that. But the thing that they were really interested in was the ability to share the stuff that they were reading. As Ciaran talked about earlier about the research at Oxford, this was actually evidence of that. We didn't expect this at all. Lots of them were telling us that they were going out and creating Facebook groups because they didn't want to use the system that the university provided for them, which at Glasgow is Moodle. They didn't want to have those conversations because academics could go in there and have a look at it. And they said that if this was available to them, they would use it. So they could set up friend groups, reading groups or whatever within this game and share what they were using. So that was a real bonus for us. The only thing about that was common among all of the groups was they hated the name Librarygame. And Ciaran's going to tell you a little bit about the Manchester experience.
So obviously getting the students on board was of vital importance, and the name feeds into that. So when we ran our focus groups, we intentionally didn't tell them what it was called. We didn't tell them it was called Librarygame. That was the technology it was based on. But when we did, they just didn't like it at all. They didn't like library, which is unfortunate, having given my work in the library, and the game put them off as well. So after some brainstorming, we ended up with booked in. So the notion is there are still library connotations there. You've got book, and you're booking into a library. Have you booked in? So there's some stuff there, and perhaps it's easy to remember, like LinkedIn and that kind of thing. So that's what we're going with, and unless there are any copyright infringements, that's what we're sticking with.
Yeah, we went for library tree. We were at Glasgow. We were very keen to make sure that it was focused on the library. We wanted we want to be sure that students realise that what they're doing is they're engaging with the library and what that does for them. So we kept library, but we got rid of game. And what we called it Library Tree, and we've called it Library Tree for this year. The University of Glasgow crest has a massive tree in the middle of it, as does the city crest, so it's very, very well recognisable by all of our students. And one of the things we'll show you in a little minute is that over the course of the year you grow a tree. That's the ultimate aim of all the badges and the points and whatever else. So we've actually got a caricature of the Glasgow tree, so that's why we called it Library Tree.
Other than that, we got very similar feedback. So the students were very positive about sharing, but they did mention being careful around privacy, and making sure that you made students aware that they were opening up their borrowing and their history and that kind of thing. So after a cycle of focus groups, feeding to the developers, we finally got access to our own browser-based version of the system. So how do I access it?
Okay, this is the homepage of the Glasgow version of Library Tree, which is running at the moment, and this is the only public-facing bit that there is, because you can see at the top actually log in to play. So you actually have to log into the system in order to be able to get into it. It immediately takes you to our identity validation. At Glasgow, that's something we call our GUID, which is a university ID. So only students with an active GUID can enter the system.
And that integration is quite important, because what it does is it brings through all your vital details, name, email, and your department. Same for both universities. And that department being quite crucial, because that means we can start comparing points and badges across departments. You've also got the option of changing your display name, your handle, and then you can upload photos so people can see your mug or face.
One of the things that came out of the focus groups at both Manchester and at Glasgow was issues around privacy. Students were quite concerned about that, and you can see here we've got a very simple privacy settings option where you can decide what you want to share and with whom, and you can also mix and match that. You don't have to share absolutely everything with all of your friends. There will be bits that you can keep private, and you can also update your settings immediately. So if you change your mind, you just go in and update them very, very simply. So it's a very simple interface, and it appears to be working very well.
Okay, so what do you get points for? What does Librarygame track? Visiting a library, we've got several different sites where you have to scan in. So for each of those, you get recognition. Borrowing an item, so taking an item out on a self-check machine, you'll get a point. You'll get notified. Returning an item, so if remember it to bring it back. And then reviewing it, so that's one of the crucial parts of this, is the fact that you can review items, rate them and recommend them, and Librarygame acknowledges that and gives you points and badges towards it. And as Kay said about the privacy before, you can have your activity open, but you can actually choose to hide individual bits. If you see the little padlock in the top right, if you click that, so you don't want anyone to know you're taking 50 Shades to read on the beach on holiday, click it and it's hidden, but the rest of your activity is still there.
One of the really attractive features of the system is the bookshelf. This is my unbelievably boring bookshelf. You see, I've been reading a lot of books on contract law recently, which is a tad is very sad. But if we go to, I'll just show you. This is actually a real student. We allowed through the sort of beta testing period, we allowed a number of students who were studying a gaming course at Glasgow to go in, because we actually wanted to see what the system would, how it would respond to real use. So this is somebody who's actually reading something a bit more interesting. You can see that it pulls from our LMS the book jacket covers from Glasgow, that's from Syndetics. You'll also see that there's a geometric cover up there. That's where we don't have any cover art. So where we don't have any cover art, there are, I think, 5 different geometric designs that are randomly assigned. Now when you click on any of the book jackets, you get a little bit more information about the book, so you can go back and you can store it, and you can take a basic reference from it. And the real power of the system, I think, though, is this little bit here where you can review, add a private note, recommend, rate, what's the last one? I just can't see it from there. Anyway, it doesn't matter, you can see them all there. You can also see over here, you can see my very excellent and authoritative review of a particular book, but you can see over here who recently borrowed it. So if one of your friends recently borrowed it, you can see it. If you choose not to share that information, it will be there. And then there's also a little bit down the side that's telling you about the badges that I've not yet got, because I haven't been using the system enough. So it gives you an idea of how visual the system actually is.
And these are some of the badges and points you start to build up. So there are about 107 challenges in total. So if you take out a stack of physics books, you'll get a reward. If you take out, if you visit a library with a friend, it will recognise that and give you a badge saying I've come with a friend. If you visit the library late in the evening, it will give you a night owl badge, all this kind of thing. Because we've got that data there, you can start to play with it. And a lot of people, students now, will be familiar with this kind of thing from computer games they've played, the kind of building up of badges and points. And there's the visual representation, so the tree that grows as you get points and badges. This is the Glasgow Library tree. And this from the Manchester one is you can start to see how you can compare the points from the different schools. And there's an overall points leader, but it resets each week, so you can see how you're doing that particular week and compare your activity to your friends, peers, colleagues.
Okay, since we loaded the software onto our own servers, we've been testing and testing again, and we've run 2 large-scale sort of stress tests on the system, where we've tried to get as many people as possible using it, and that's been really useful because it has thrown up a number of little errors, recurrent errors, and some platform stability issues that we managed to sort out very quickly with the developers. The last test that we did before we opened the service a couple of weeks ago was we invited all members of the library staff to use the system, to register and use the system on the same day between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and at one point we had 98 people actively using the system at the same time. So not only did that give us really good feedback, but it was a way of engaging the library staff with this whole project. I've been standing up at meetings for the last year telling them that this was coming and never showing them it because we could never actually get a live version, so it was fantastic, and the feedback that we got from library staff was just wonderful. And actually, we need them to be engaged. They're going to go out and sell it to students. So that's been really, really useful. They gave us some very good feedback, and it was really important. But as I say, I think the testing of this, we both agree, has taken a little bit of time, but it was important that we got it right. It was important that it worked well. It was important that all of the functionality was available to students, and we really couldn't have done that without running these stress tests on the system. So where are we now? Well, we both have versions that are live on our servers at the moment. At Glasgow we've been a little bit cautious. We're still calling ours beta, and the reason for that is that we haven't yet been able to get our e-resource integration into the system, but we're probably going to be able to do that within the next 2 weeks. I've spent the last 2 or 3 months looking at Raptor logs and Easy Proxy logs to try and decide what we can pull out. Initially what we're going to do is we're going to use Raptor data, so we're going to be pulling that out. It's really essential, I think, for us to get the e-resource integration there, because we want to keep a balance in the game, because for a lot of our faculties the use of print materials or the physical use of the library is a lot less, and particularly in the STM disciplines. So what getting this into the system and working. As soon as that happens, we'll take it out of beta and we'll open it up completely. The other thing that's really important for this summer is the launch of the mobile apps. Running in the Halls are developing an Android and an iOS app. Although the system's fully responsive and it works absolutely brilliantly, looks really nice on a mobile phone or a tablet, I think it's really essential that we have something in the App Store that we can point people to. And I actually firmly believe, I think I've believed ever since the proof of concept idea that it was always going to be something that people would use on a phone. I don't think it's the thing that you're going to log into. I think it's the thing that a student will look at on their way to the university, check out what their friends have been reading the night before, see if they've got any books that are due back or whatever. So I think the mobile bit is pretty important, and we are on track now to launch the full service in September 2014 as our Manchester.
Yes, echoing what Kay says. We managed to test with a few real-life students before they broke up the other week. That first comment, I've read the rest of their comments, and I can tell you that that's not sarcastic. They genuinely were excited about all the different features. But the second one did raise feeds into the e-resource issue. So the student was looking for an article, they found it in the library search tool, clicked on it, saw it, and then went back to Booked In to see what points or badges they got, and they hadn't got any. And that's because at the moment we can't feed in, so I'll come back to that in a second. I know there are a lot of technical people in here, so I thought this would be worth just running through, is how it kind of actually works. So we've got a server I sit next to, thankfully, a tamed developer, so he was able to create a Java web service, and that goes off to the LMS, off to the access control system. It grabs the recent events for the students you're interested in and then throws it at the API that's running in the halls made available on the Librarygame server, and that builds up your points and badges. That bottom right bit, the shibboleth authentication, that's the bit we're having trouble with at Manchester. So if you use shibboleth or some kind of proxy, that's great because you've got that track of people accessing resources, and you can scrape logs or do whatever you need to do, and then feed that through to the Librarygame. But at Manchester, we don't always do that. We register our IP range with the e-resource providers. So students on campus or in halls, if they access an e-resource and the e-resource provider sees that IP address looks great, they go, right, it's from Manchester, we'll assume it's fine, which is great for the student because they don't have to log in, but it means we don't get a trace and we've got nothing to chuck at the Librarygame server. So if answers on a postcard, if anyone can help me solve this issue, please get in touch after the presentation. Okay.
As I say, we're on course now for the launch of a full service in September 2014. The main focus for us is definitely going to be on the first year undergraduates. We've got a massive marketing campaign ready to go, which will run during Freshers Week. I think it's absolutely vital that we try and engage as many students as we can. We've got a really imaginative team that have been working on the visuals and the Twitter campaign and the Facebook campaign and all sorts of things ready to go. In fact, I'm at the moment trying to source real badges because we've been given lots of feedback from students who say they actually want a real badge. So if they get real badges, somebody else has come up with an idea of a loyalty card with stamps with the real badges up there. There's all sorts of things happening. That's really good fun. Because of the information we got about the third, fourth year students saying they like particular elements of it, we're also going to simultaneously run a marketing campaign in the first month aimed at them specifically. So not on the whole game, on the elements of the game that we think will be of interest to continuing students. That's the real focus.
Okay, what next? Well, there's our Learning Commons. Yeah, why don't we put the leaderboard? We've got a big digital display outside. We could put it up there. Why, you know, let's give it a go. If the students are happy to share this data, then let's run with it. This is one of the dangers. I'm going to have to take this down if I let's share this, because otherwise Fox will sue me for £1 million. But the idea is that everyone's got great ideas, but if we're putting all of these ideas in the project, there's a danger that we'll try and do everything and in actual fact have something that does nothing for nobody. So I think we've actually been quite careful. So we've consulted with students a lot, but we're not trying to do absolutely everything. We're more about just concentrating on the sharing and the making friends and the points. and evaluating that. I mean, that's going to be the crucial thing, really. It's going to be about collecting the data and the right data when we review the project. So we're going to be really interested in the engagement, whether we can measure whether students who are using Librarygame are using the library more, and then also the engagement with the game itself. So we might get 1,000 people registering, but if no one's using it a week later, then what's the point? Or, you know, we'll follow up week, month, Christmas, and we'll share the data with each other and outwardly as well. And obviously we'll speak to the students to ask them how they interact with it and whether it's working for them. So we don't know. When I pitched for this proposal, I thought we might have some actual data I could share with you, but unfortunately I don't yet. But we will, and I think it'll be really interesting when we do. And just to PowerPoint skills. Just to relate it into the lingering gold, I think the lingering gold in this particular instance is the fact that the libraries are generating all of this data, fascinating data, and we're fortunate in the UK particularly that we don't have to get rid of it and it's there. And why not use it in an interesting way? Why not play with it? If the students are happy to share, then let's do it. Let's try it. Let's play. I mean, the project is about gamification and playing. Let's play with our data. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yes, hello. I'm Charles Westerbeek from the Erasmus University Rotterdam. I have a question. What is your main reason for having students in the library physically? So, if I understand it good, that was one of the main reasons why you built this app.
It wasn't really about the students in the library. It was just that in both of our libraries we have over 1 million students coming in every year, and it's actually just to reward that behaviour. What we want to do is not just get them into the library and sit and use a desktop. One of the things about this system, I think, that's always intrigued me is how we add value into it, and that's the thing that we'll start to do over the next couple of years. We'll start to add things like one of the joint ideas that we have for the next phase of the project is integrating it with our reading list system, and so that if they use that they'll get rewarded. We also want to start adding things like if they come along to some kind of information literacy instruction course or something, they get it. We want them to understand that the library's at the hub of their learning, and that's why for us we were quite keen on keeping the library in the name initially. If students turn round and don't like it and would tell us to call it something else, we might, but it's actually about rewarding library experience, and we will find a way, I think, of rewarding people who are using the system remotely. That's another thing that we're looking at. So if people don't actually come into the building, we can reward it in another way. We will begin to look at both external use and physical use of the building. It's about, I think, the library being at the centre of their academic learning, and how important it is that the skills that they could learn there and the content that they can get from there are understood by them.
So they don't need to be physically?
No, they don't need to be physically in the building.
The library I'm working in is really involved teaching not only the students but also the people working in the library to cope with this very new world. As he needs to learn about big data, about RDF, about how to put data online, and they were asking me to build a library game, but then for the library users. And have you any advice there how I could make this?
Yeah, make sure they're involved in the process, because with these things, getting that engagement, I think, is the key. Because you see examples of libraries who put, for example, QR code kind of treasure hunts around, but no one's using them. So yeah, getting them involved I think the game dynamics is sort of things around when you start you quickly get points, but then it peters off, so you have to do more to get. It's the graph that goes like that. Yeah.
Well, looks like there are no more questions, so then many thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much.